Comey's revenge. It's SkyWatch TV for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. I'm Derek Gilbert. First up, former FBI Director James Comey accused President Donald Trump of asking him to close a federal investigation into General Mike Flynn during a meeting at the Oval Office on February 14th, a day after Flynn was fired by President Trump. According to the New York Times, Trump told Comey, "I hope you can let this go." This is according to a memo that was read to a reporter for the New York Times by an unnamed source. A memo the Times didn't see by a man they will not name. Comey reportedly wrote the memo immediately after the meeting with Trump, part of an effort to document situations in which, the Times says, the president sought to interfere in FBI operations. And FBI's notes, by the way, are often cited in court cases and held in high regard as evidence of conversations. The White House quickly replied, claiming in a statement that the president has never asked Mr. Comey or anyone else to end an investigation, including General Flynn. Following the pattern we mentioned the day before, the Washington Post and the accusations of President Trump revealing highly classified information to the Russians. Well, why is this a big idea? Because if this is considered obstruction of justice, and that term is being used by Democrats and opponents within the Republican Party, it could be grounds to launch impeachment proceedings. Chairman of the House Oversight Committee Jason Chaffetz of Utah sent a letter to acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe asking for all of Comey's papers related to his dealings with President Trump to be delivered to the committee by next Wednesday. Now, oddly, the Comey memo seemed to directly contradict testimony given by acting Director McCabe to the Senate Intelligence Committee, in which he said, quote, "There has been no effort to impede our investigation to date," end quote, referring to the investigation into Russian influence on the Trump administration and the Trump campaign. So either McCabe is lying or former FBI Director James Comey had real trust issues with his second in command. Now, if this accusation against the president doesn't stick, the New York Times is following up its report on classified intelligence that Trump allegedly leaked to the Russians, the Russian ambassador and foreign secretary, by claiming that the source of the information given to the Russians was Israel. Again, more anonymous sources. The Times writes, "The revelation that Mr. Trump boasted about some of Israel's most sensitive information to the Russians could damage the relationship between the two countries," end quote. They also warn that this information, if it gets into Russian hands, which it has, could be passed on to Iran. Well, it was okay when President Obama sent $1.7 billion in cash to Iran as part of the Iran nuclear deal, which, by the way, violated United States banking laws. But for the president to share information with an ally in the fight against Islamic terror is grounds for impeachment. We see how the game is being played here. The irony, of course, is that the story that Trump shared sensitive intelligence with the Russian ambassador and foreign minister, published by the Washington Post originally on Monday, is that the Post story may have jeopardized the safety of a key intelligence asset more than anything Trump might have said to the Russians. This is according to a former intelligence officer who was interviewed by the Daily Caller Foundation. Media reports, not the president, outed to the general public, you and me, the source, nature, and existence of intelligence related to an Islamic State plot and U.S. national security. But the media doesn't care as long as they can use it to try to bash the president. A growing number of Democrats have called on President Trump to release a transcript of his recent meeting with the Russian foreign minister and ambassador at the Oval Office, where he reportedly revealed this information. On Tuesday, New York Senator Chuck Schumer said that if there's nothing to hide, then a transcript should be released. He said, quote, "Until the administration fully explains the facts of this case, the American people will rightly doubt if their president can handle our nation's most closely kept secrets," end quote. Again, I remind you, nuclear deal with Iran. In other news, more Americans now believe the Bible is a book of fables than those who believe it's the literal word of God. This is according to a Gallup poll released Monday. Even fewer than a third of Christians say that it's to be taken literally. This is not really surprising if you've been paying attention to the state of American culture and morality in the last few years. New research by the Barna Group, though, is even more disturbing, found that most Americans who call themselves Christians do not hold a biblical worldview. I've mentioned this before. This is an update of a survey that the Barna Group last conducted in 2009. This year, finding that only 17% of self-identifying Christians actually hold a biblical worldview. That is, they believe in 6 key tenets of Christian faith, which you could call Christianity 101. Things like Jesus lived a sinless life, was born of a virgin, Satan is a literal entity and not just a concept, things like that. 28% of practicing Christians strongly agree that all people pray to the same God or spirit. 28% of Christians believe that all people, no matter what religion, pray to the same God or spirit, no matter what name they use for that spiritual being. Again, that should be Christianity 101. 27% strongly agree with the belief that meaning and purpose come from becoming one with all that is. Meaning and purpose come from becoming one with all that is. The New Age movement has influenced more than a quarter of the people who call themselves Christian in this country. We do not become one with all that is. That is Eastern thought. You are an individual, uniquely and wonderfully and fearfully made by God, the creator of the universe, who spoke all things into existence. Your destiny is not to become just one drop in a vast ocean of souls. That is anti-Christian. But more than a quarter of professing Christians in America strongly agree with that statement. As God told the prophet Hosea, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Please look for us now on the new SkyWatch TV mobile app. Take us with you. Take us in your pocket. You'll find information on the mobile app as well as how to find us on Roku or Apple TV at the website. Just look in that top menu bar where that red arrow is pointing. You'll find us at skywatchtv.com, and you'll find all of my stuff posted, including a new long-running video series. I think I'm up to part 19 now, or at least part 19 is getting ready to release, based on the book, The Great Inception. You got 5 minutes? Learn something about the Bible. It's all in here. But if you got time, you get to see me talk about it and the folks at Morningside Church. Thank you to them for graciously allowing me to reuse that video. You'll find that at my website, DerekPGilbert.com. And thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.
I was hired by the government of Sardar to dig up the skeletons of giants. We always carried the bones and the artifacts we found into the church.
So they would make these skeletons disappear. And the church was always involved because they didn't want people talking.
So we asked the priest, what are we supposed to do with the skeleton? And he said, break it into pieces and bury it under the foundation of the house.
I personally excavated 2 skeletons that were more than 10 feet tall.
What happened with the Anasazi? A portal opened, a doorway, and the giants came up out of the earth.
It's almost like they were eaten on the run. This was the violent overthrow of the Anasazi.
Tens of thousands of artifacts were carted off to the Smithsonian's repositories, including the bones of the giants.
At the turn of the 19th century, bodies of giants were turning up all over the United States. All over the island of Sardinia, there are massive stone sepulchres famed since time immemorial as tombs of the giants. Everywhere the megalithic towers stood, the tombs of the giants were close by. There may be tens of thousands of giants still buried in the soils of Sardinia today.
Giants are going to return to the earth, are going to rise from the dead.
There is a multi-billion-dollar black market for extractable DNA from the tissue and the bones of dead giants. The stage is now set for mankind to bring about the reemergence of the Rephaim. The enemies of God are about to become the architects of their own divine judgment.
After the meeting with Trump, part of an effort to document situations in which, the Times says, the president sought to interfere in FBI operations. And FBI's notes, by the way, are often cited in court cases and held in high regard as evidence of conversations. The White House quickly replied, claiming in a statement that the president has never asked Mr. Comey or anyone else to end an investigation the day after Flynn was fired by President Trump. According to the New York Times, Trump told Comey, "I hope you can let this go." This is according to a memo that was read to a reporter for the New York Times by an unnamed source. A memo the Times didn't see by a man they will not name. Comey reportedly wrote the memo immediately, including any investigation, including General Flynn. Following the pattern we mentioned the day before, the Washington Post and the accusations of President Trump revealing highly classified information to the Russians. Well, why is this a big idea? Because if this is considered obstruction of justice, and that term is being used by Democrats and opponents within the Comey's revenge. It's SkyWatch TV for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. I'm Derek Gilbert. First up, former FBI Director James Comey accused President Donald Trump of asking him to close a federal investigation into General Mike Flynn during a meeting at the Oval Office on February 14th. Republican Party, it could be grounds to launch impeachment proceedings. Chairman of the House Oversight Committee Jason Chaffetz of Utah sent a letter to acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe asking for all of Comey's papers related to his dealings with President Trump to be delivered to the committee by next Wednesday. Now, oddly, the Comey memo seems